Let's begin, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That great former U.S. veteran, Pat Durrani, just popped right up and went right into that Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Director Durrani. Madam Secretary, can you call the roll, please?
Sure. Director Colson? Director Durrani?
Yes.
Director Fraga? Director Fuentes? Director Groven?
Here.
Director Higgins?
Here.
Director Holt, which we'll hear about in a minute. Director Cotel?
Here.
Director Lewis?
Here.
Director McAllis?
Here.
Director Melvin?
Here.
Director Pang?
Here.
Director Ross?
Here.
Dr. Sager?
Here.
Director Troiani?
Here.
Chairman Dillard?
Here.
We have a quorum of 14 present with 2 absent.
Thank you, and thank you all for your attendance. It was funny, I was with a executive director of a major state agency or board yesterday, and he asked me, how's your attendance? And I said, it's generally always perfect, and not only do the members attend, they attend committee meetings of committees that are not even on, and he was talking about how they regularly had to change meeting dates to get a quorum. So, as always, I very much appreciate everybody's hard work and just your attention to the detail of your appointment to the RTA. So thank you very much. Before we begin, speaking of board members and attendance, we have a change on the board that's coming. Alexandra Holt, as B will tell you, somebody who is very familiar, or Sarah, with finances of the city and the region. Alexandra Holt was appointed yesterday to replace Director Tony Anderson. She couldn't be here today due to a previous commitment, but she'll be here in January. I want to thank Director Anderson for all his great work over time, and Alexandra, who's really a fixture, I think, in city finances and regional finances, will be another great addition to this board. So we look forward to having her on the board in January. And again, I want to thank Director Anderson. Item 3A is the approval of the minutes from our meeting held just recently on November 28th, 2018. Any questions or comments on that? If not, can I have a motion to approve those minutes in a second? Moved by Director Christopher Melvin that we approve them, seconded by Director Ike McAllis. And Audrey, why don't you take the roll so we have a real roll call?
Okay. Director Colson? Yes. Director Durrani?
Yes.
Director Fraga? Aye. Director Groven? Yes. Director Higgins?
Aye.
Director Cotel?
Aye.
Director Lewis?
Aye.
Director McAllis?
Aye.
Director Melvin?
Aye.
Director Pang?
Aye.
Director Ross? Aye. Dr. Sager?
Yes.
Director Troiani?
Aye.
Chairman Dillard?
Yes.
14 ayes and 2 absent.
Super. Thank you. Item 4 is the public comment segment of the meeting today. I know we have at least one speaker scheduled for today, and when I call your name, why don't you step up to the podium, state your name, your affiliation. You'll be allowed under our rules 3 minutes to address the board. After a couple minutes, Madam Secretary will probably remind you you have about a minute remaining. At the end of the 3 minutes, if there's a second person who has signed up, and I'll step back and we'll call them up. But we ask you to respect this procedure. I just want to say for the record, I've read every written comment that has come in during the budget input process, and I think most of you have as well. And if there's anybody else that's out there after Garland Armstrong speaks, just raise your hand and I will acknowledge you. Garland, it's all yours. Welcome again. And thanks for everything you do for the RTA and mass transit.
Happy holidays to you, Chairman Dillard and directors. My biggest concern is the wheelchair securements. Last month, one of my friends, she was in a power wheelchair on the CTA bus. trying to get secured on there, and the CTA bus operator refused to get out of his seat and secure the person in the power wheelchair for safety. And when I just got the call that she was in the hospital, she flipped after she was in there, and the bus operator doesn't know how to strap down a person in a power wheelchair or manual wheelchair. PACE's policy, they do it really good on strapping down a person in power wheelchair and for safety issues, so it won't be a liability. But I think you need to look at CTA's policy for wheelchair securement, because especially we're concerned about individuals with disabilities who might end up in a hospital again, and they really don't know where to start to strap down for a person in a power wheelchair or manual wheelchair. So I think you need to look at the CTA's policy on that, because my biggest concern is that an individual in a wheelchair might want to go on the CTA bus, and when they ask and the bus operators refuse, it's going to be another hurt incident on the CTA bus and have to end up in a hospital again. So I think you need to look at that policy on that, so people in the disability community won't end up in no more hospitals with another hospital bill. And I think the time is now to do it. So my suggestion is for you to look at that CTA policy on securement of it, to make sure that all the buses, make sure that they are well secured and safety, so no more hospital bills for them. So that's my biggest concern about that.
Great. No, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Director Durante?
Are you saying that she was injured?
Yes, because she was in a
wasn't
power
strapped in?
wheelchair. She came on the bus by herself, and she asked the bus operator, she needed assistance, but the bus operator refused to get up and don't know how to strap down a person in a power wheelchair or a manual wheelchair. For example, when I get on the CTA bus with my wife, I have to tell the bus operator, let me secure her all the way until she's well secured and ready to go. But there are some new bus operators don't know how to do it at all. They don't know where to put the attachments on there for persons in a power wheelchair or a manual wheelchair. So that's my biggest concern, because they could end up in a hospital again.
So she was injured because she wasn't strapped in.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right, because it could happen again without warning, and that is my biggest concern is, so I think you need to look at that CTA policy on it, because this is really going to go on and on.
We will definitely talk to the CTA, and thank you for bringing that to our attention. Just for the record, Garland Armstrong is with Access Living and is a regular here at the meeting, so we appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, Garland.
Thanks a lot, and just
take
want
care
to
of that.
remind you that my wife's birthday is coming up fast on New Year's Day, so just want y'all to know, and since she's home right now.
She was born in the blizzard of 1979, so thank you.
Happy holidays to you and a happy New Year.
Thanks, Garland, very much. Is there anybody else that has any comments they wish to give? Okay, well, thank you, and this is to everybody who showed up at any of our meetings or wrote in. We definitely appreciate, we take to heart your input, and especially if you are a writer, we listen especially hard. So thank you very much. Item 5 is Executive Director Leanne Redden's report. Leanne?
Good morning, everyone. Happy holidays, and I'll begin with how much the state owes us. So through the end, thanks, Jill. Through the end of November, the state owes the RTA $423.6 million in a combination of the ASA, AFA, which is the contribution they make towards debt service on bonds that we float, as well as a portion of those monies from the public transportation fund that they owe us. The state right now is about 16 months behind on the ASA side, 17 months behind on AFA funding, and the equivalent of 7.8 months behind on PTF funding. The year-to-date costs, as you know, we carry short-term debt to cover that delay and those shortfalls, and the year-to-date cost is $6.4 million. So we're, as they say in the holiday season, racking up the credit card bills. So, moving on to government affairs update. In D.C., the U.S. Congress suspended much of its business this week, the week of December 3rd, to honor George H.W. Bush, I should say, which in turn extended the deadline for the continuing resolution that is keeping the government open and funded. Now Congress has until December 21 to pass the 7 remaining appropriation bills. The Transportation, Housing and Urban Development Group, THUD, which funds the federal transportation programs, is one of the remaining 2019 spending bills that has yet to be passed. Moving on to Illinois. The Illinois General Assembly is scheduled to return, excuse me, I'm going to sound like Audrey in a second, is scheduled to, maybe it's contagious, is scheduled to return to Springfield on January 7th and 8th for a 2-day lame duck session. The inauguration of the 101st General Assembly is on January 9th, and the inauguration for executive officers, including the governor, will take place on January 14th. So on a couple of other fronts, local planning staff, with the cooperation of the service boards and CMAP, recently completed the process of selecting projects for the Access to Transit program. The Access to Transit program provides small-scale capital improvements and funding for those improvements that improve pedestrian, bicycle access to the RTA system. So there's the tiny increments of sometimes those projects that get forgotten that can actually make a pretty significant, meaningful impact. This was the 4th round of projects to be accepted, and so far we have funded 21 projects. We received strong interest this year with 28 applications from 26 communities covering across all 6 counties. And 10 projects have been selected to move forward to the next stage in the funding process, which is essentially working with them directly to apply for federal and leverage federal CMAQ funds that will cover, we anticipate, 80% of the cost of that, totaling about $5.9 million for the total budget. To cover the remaining local match, the RTA would contribute $772,000, and the local municipal communities would actually collectively contribute about $407,000. These projects include a variety of multimodal improvements in and around rail stations and bus stops, including things like crosswalks, sidewalks, warming shelters, bike parking, ADA accessibility improvements and ramps, and wayfinding signage. Although these projects have been selected and funding is contingent upon the selection within the broader CMAQ program, the RTA staff is currently preparing the CMAQ application, and those applications are due in February. So the final awards will be announced in fall next year. Communities selected for this round include Aurora, Blue Island, Calumet Park, Harvard, Midlothian, Niles, North Chicago, Park Forest, Prospect Heights, and Woodstock. So just to wrap up, it's only been 3 weeks since we met last. Some of us have been busy. The cast of characters that we're here presenting at the board meeting last month, we have done a series of panels in those couple of weeks where we talked about, we sort of took our show on the road, talking about the need to invest in our transit infrastructure and what those funding needs are. I moderated a panel at City Club last week with the 3 executive directors with a sold-out packed room, so it was a great audience to really hear sort of a slightly unplugged version. It wasn't the usual sort of stand up with PowerPoint and just sort of give a speech. Director Groven actually attended, so you can ask him questions if on his perspective. And then earlier this week, the 4 of us also appeared on Chicago Tonight, again talking about what our transit issues are, why we should be investing in the infrastructure, and why it is really critical to the region's economy. I think I think we can send you links. Those videos are all online and available. So I encourage you to take a look and sort of see some of the stuff that we've been talking about. Also in this communication space, I want to share that we recently won several MARCOM awards and MARCOM Awards, as they, just because I say it funny, so I felt like I should pronounce it, is an organization that recognizes excellence in communication. Our printed strategic plan material won the Platinum Award. Our Invest in Transit video, which you have all seen, inspired by the plan, won a Gold Award. And the hashtag We Can't All Ride a Broom video for Halloween, that I think you've probably all seen, for this year's Halloween, also won a Gold Award. So congrats to our planning and communication staff for all the work they put into actually compiling those documents, and it's kind of cool and fun to be recognized for those. So this is the end of the year. I want to take the opportunity to wish you and your families happy holidays and a safe holiday season. And thank the staff. We look forward to, I think, an exciting, challenging 2019. Hopefully we'll be having a different conversation about delivering meaningful revenues to the system to deliver the capital projects that we all keep talking about. And in January, I will give you, as I usually do, kind of a wrap-up of look at 18 and sort of some of our future look for 2019 at that board meeting as well. So thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Yes, Director Lewis.
Leanne, the Metro has been in the news quite a bit lately relative to the local news media for some of the acquisitions as well as some of the service issues. Any thoughts on that dialogue? I don't know if it's covered in the panel discussions, but it certainly has been very topical.
Yeah, there's been we did cover it somewhat directly in the presentations that we did. Also, when we did when the service boards were here, you heard from Jim very specifically about some of the, challenges that they are facing, the age of their infrastructure, how a lot of the work they have to do is partnering with the private railroads. The BNSF is one of those ones that's been, Congressman Lipinski just held a hearing earlier this week. And so the challenges that they face are in the really fundamentally the shortfall of capital funding is sort of coming home to roost to some extent. Jim talked about, having to buy newer locomotives, essentially retired from Amtrak, so they're newer, cleaner, and more efficient than the current ones they have, but they're not new and they're not the most efficient. So while they're trying to sort of cobble together the funds that they can to provide as best service and efficient service and certainly safe service, it isn't optimal. And those shortfalls that we face, the issues that you're hearing coming up in a lot of those public hearings are a direct result of the need for needing to invest in our infrastructure. So I think those opportunities are while it's a great opportunity for residents and commuters and riders to express their concerns and frustration, and Jim and the Metro staff will acknowledge that all that head on. It is a good opportunity to say, so how do we change that? We need to invest, and we need the money to do that.
In our dialogue, have we got more sympathy from some of the supporters who might be willing to help advance an alternative funding strategy, because the issues are being clearly displayed in the public media, so I wonder if we're beginning to generate some sympathy.
Certainly understanding, and we continue. I mean, the panels that we keep doing we're doing it very purposefully to keep talking to broader audiences about what our issues and needs are, but then we're continuing to talk with business leaders in the business community about sort of connecting the dots. This is an economic investment opportunity. This is not a government liability. This is something that can actually drive and turn around and continue to support the region's economy, and it returns a great investment it's a great return on that investment. So we'll continue to do that to build that base of support and a broader constituency. So if there is traction and as things develop in Springfield for a capital program, which will necessitate additional revenues, that's the hard facts of that issue. We will hopefully have the support to garner the votes to implement that.
Answer your question? Okay, great. Thank you. I know Metro actually lost physically an engine near Franklin Park that caught on fire last week. I think to be replaced by one of the Amtrak engines that they procured from California. But it's a two-prong attack. It is, as Leanne said, we are an economic engine, the economic equalizer for the region, with a return of 3 to 4 to 1 on every mass transit dollar that is invested. That Metropolitan Plan Commission report, to me, just screams of how important mass transit is to economic development, where 85% of all commercial construction in the last decade in the 7-county metropolitan region, 85% of all new commercial construction was within 1 mile of mass transit. 50% of all jobs created in the last decade in that area within a half a mile of mass transit. And then Mary Sue Barrett, the head of the Metropolitan Plan Commission, to me, she's on the Pritzker transition team with myself on infrastructure. She said really the most telltaling statistic was that while Illinois in the recession was hemorrhaging jobs, losing jobs, if you were within a half a mile of mass transit, 11,000 new jobs were created during the recession. So if there is anything, and I am wholeheartedly sympathetic with investing in education and all of the other needs that are out there, including health care, if you want one thing that moves your economy, no pun intended, more than anything else, it is mass transit, especially with a millennial and a workforce that is being driven more by high technology types of jobs. BMO Harris has announced they are going to build their complex adjacent to their headquarters next to Union Station as part of the Union Station plan. 80% of every BMO Harris employee takes mass transit to work. So we are, without a doubt, I think, the single biggest driver and return on investment that the state of Illinois can do in terms of economic development and creation. But it's two-pronged, job creation. And then for those of us, and I ride that Burlington Northern Santa Fe, I thank Congressman Lipinski for having a hearing, and I think they're going to have further hearings. But if you are tired of getting the mechanical delay updates that we all get, or slowdowns or breakdowns, it is a clear, direct nexus to the lack of a capital bill in Springfield. So the next time you're delayed on a Metro train, email your local state legislator and say, hey, we need, for the first time in a decade, some funding for mass transit. And again, Leanne's first thing on her report is the state owes the RTA $500 million, of which we must pay interest on to keep our systems flowing. So that's my 2 cents for the day. I feel better now. Thank you all. So, item 6, going back to action items here, is the approval of a consent item as it appears on the board agenda. There's one item, and it's 6A and 6B, the ordinance authorizing the quarterly capital amendment, and 6B, the ordinance adopting the 2019 regional and service budgets, probably the most important thing we do all year. We've had our public hearings. I thank Ike McGallis and the staff who have just done a yeoman's job. And for those of you who were here before I came, I would always hear horror stories from folks about how awful that process is. But because of the great work of Ike and the staff and Leanne and all of you, including the 3 service boards who cooperate day in and day out, the process is no longer like a root canal. So thank you. Any questions? Is there a motion on 6A or 6B? You want to do Director McGallis, since you're our fiscal wizard and have just done yeoman's work and taught us an incredible amount with B and her staff. Director McGallis moves that we approve the items on item 6, seconded by anyone. Seconded by Director Groven. Thank you very much. You and I have no appreciation for how difficult this process used to be, but we'll accept it. Is there leave for the attendance roll call? Seeing no objection, leave is granted. Thank
14
you.
ayes and 2 absent.
And thank you, B, very much. Item 7 is the approval of contract and expenditure items as they appear on the board agenda. These include 7A, which is an ordinance authorizing a contract amendment for our board meeting services. I was looking, there's a memo to all of us about how extensive that company work for us is. And it's clearly necessary, I think, for transparency. And 7B are the travel expense reimbursement approvals as required by law. Any questions there? If not, can I have a motion to approve? Dr. Trione moves that we approve the items in 7, seconded by Director Higgins. Is there leave for the attendance roll call on that? Seeing no objection, leave is granted.
14 ayes and 2 absent.
Thank you, Audrey. Item 8 is a special action item. It's one that I have not, we very rarely use this power of eminent domain, but item 8A is an ordinance authorizing an amendment for eminent domain on behalf of the PACE bus system. Leanne, or Nadine, I know we've talked about this, but anything to add other than they need it for the garage in Elgin or South Elgin?
Good morning, everyone. No, I don't really have anything to add to what's already in the memo. We got new title information about the property that's the subject of the memo and the ordinance, so we thought we'd beef up the ordinance that the board already approved a few months ago with that new property information and that new property description. So that's really what this item is about.
Thank you. And it's something we generally have not really done, but this one necessitates it. Can I have a motion to approve this? Dr. Sager moves we approve item 8A, seconded by Director Sarah Pang. Is there leave for the attendance roll call on that? Seeing no objection, leave is granted.
14 ayes and 2 absent.
Item 9 is new business. Is there any new business that we need to bring up today? Just want to make sure there's no one else that wants to do any public comment. Okay. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, January 17th, following committee meetings as usual that begin at 8:30. And before we adjourn, like Leanne, I just want to take this opportunity to thank the board and the staff for its great hard work during the past year. And most importantly, I want to thank our loyal riders who continue to stick with us, give us good input during incredibly, probably record fiscal challenges that we have in the state of Illinois. So I want to thank our riders for their loyal service, and hopefully with a new change after the first of the year in Springfield in the General Assembly and the executive branch, we'll get a capital bill, and next year we'll be talking about how we continue to, with a new source of revenue, improve our system for our riders and make our economy hum, because where transit goes, the economy grows. So everybody have a happy and safe holiday season. Have a very, very, very happy and prosperous New Year. And if there's no further business to become before the board, how about a motion and a second to adjourn? Director Lewis, you move to have us adjourn, seconded by Director Ryan Higgins. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we are adjourned. Happy New Year, everybody, and thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.